I'm delighted to announce that this roundtable, after 1 year running this and more than 300 agencies, is officially sponsored by my good friends at Gorgeous. Gorgeous are the #1 rated help desk for Shopify merchants, and they work with almost 6,000 brands across the globe. In the agency that I ran, Gorgeous were a key part of my tech stack. So this is not a sales pitch by any stretch of the imagination. For me, for all the agencies that I work with, most of them have Gorgeous built in, whether it was through me, through my recommendation, or on their own, because it is a fantastic bit of kit. And it's such an easy sell when you build it in as part of a retainer model. So I'm extremely grateful to be able to go from the agency world and working with Gorgeous very closely, and now in the work that I do with agencies, still having them support me. So anyway, enjoy this roundtable. The roundtable here is a group of agencies getting together to really share some of their learnings, some of their challenges, what's working, what's not working, and brainstorm with each other. And at the end of this, I'll follow up with a little bit about how I build technologies into my tech stack, and how that's a good way to bring in revenue, commission. I have an agency that brings in about €20,000 on a monthly basis just on commissions from some of the tech stacks they work with. So it's definitely a nice little learner if you're doing it properly. So enjoy the roundtable, and I will catch you on the other end. I am good. I'm just back. Well, not just back. I came back on Friday from Web Summit in Lisbon. I spent a week in Web Summits.
We saw the pictures. We're all very jealous.
There were the pictures that were suitable for public consumption. There was a lot of pictures because I shared an Airbnb with 6 of the guys with the group of agencies that I work with. And it was a lot of late nights, a lot of shenanigans. Some of the photos, I woke up the next day and I'm like, where were we? Like, how did this happen? Like we peaked. And Sarkis, I hung up with Sarkis. We went to the event. I was just telling him about I feel like we were fairly tame at the actual event that I hosted.
Yeah, that was very professional and very tame.
But it was after the event. I don't know. I to be honest, I can't remember, but I don't know if you joined us in Pink Street, but that was
I did for a small bit, but yeah, it's a shame I couldn't see more of you guys, to be honest, but I had family visiting, but it was a great event and great to meet people in person, which was amazing.
Yeah, it was so great. We had like more than 300 people sign up for that, and there was like a group of maybe 40 or 50 of us who kind of knew each other. So it was really good. We did make it to a shisha bar the next night, but it was the dirtiest, grimiest shisha bar you've ever been in your life. It was filth. Like, I don't know what was in those shishas, but it was like, felt at one stage it was like fucking smoking chewing gum. I don't know what it was. It was rough.
Well,
but anyway,
next time we'll go to the one I suggested, and I'll make sure.
Exactly. When you have like 73 shots of tequila, it's just whatever is closest. Just follow the crowd and say yes to everything. Maybe not 70.
What was the actual event?
The event was Web Summit, so it's like one of the largest tech events in Europe. So at the peak, they had like 90,000 people. This year they had, because it was off last year because of COVID, and then this year was the first year back, and they had 40,000 people. So it's an event really for a lot of startups. They do have an e-commerce track, and I knew I was going because a lot of my agencies, we wanted to get together at the end of the year, and then we decided to put on an event, like a meetup in a really nice venue. So we had like about 300 people sign up for that. The next day we did a bit of a boat cruise, and in between it was just 5 days of just madness. Like, it was, I'm recovering now. I had like a 12-hour nap when I got back on Friday to just try and get back to normal. So, but it was good. It was really good. It was really good to see everyone. But yes, we were very sensible in front of Sarkis, so he didn't shame us. But we were very shameful otherwise.
What was this in Lisbon?
Yeah, in Lisbon. Yeah. It was beautiful. Yeah. So how's everyone else? Has everybody lost 50% of their employees, or is that what happening with all the other agencies right now? Like, is everybody's project managers left for an extra 50% salary at a SaaS company, or just my agency?
It's been hard to hire and keep staff. I'm
Really
from
hard.
Montreal, Canada, and we've been known for being like a bit of a tech hub in North America. But everyone's already been consumed up. We have like big players like Shopify with their head office there, and like Lightspeed, and like a lot of large fintech startups, and like the government here really helps startups like with subsidies and the tax credits, especially if you're like outside of the country. So we've always been kind of like for the past like 10 years, like a big quote unquote mecca within North America to like start up your tech company out here. But that, that absorbs all of the talent locally. So it's interesting for us where, and we don't do like crazy things. Like we're a WordPress agency, and so we just need PHP full stack developers, and it's just extremely difficult. Hard to find, hard to keep.
Chicago.
Sorry, excuse me.
I feel like somebody just shouted Chicanos.
Yeah, it's something
That's
like
what I
that.
heard, but I've been watching them 60 days in, so that's probably from that.
Yeah, so I feel you, and anyone else who have those issues. There's definitely a lack of resources around the world for tech and programming.
Yeah, and I actually am director of ops at a big Shopify agency. It's like a 50, 60 person team in Montreal as well. And it's just like the numbers are just insane. I have an agency in New York, and he had a sales rep, and she was earning like a base of, I think like 70 or 80K base, which is pretty high for a salesperson, but it's New York. And then she probably had a commission of like 50. So I think her package was somewhere around 120. She left to work for a SaaS company in a sales team for a 250K package.
Wow.
I mean, how do you compete? There just is no competition. Another agency, he had a project manager, and she was on 100K, which is a lot of money for a project manager. And she only has 2 years experience, and left for another project management role at a competing agency for 20. And she'd only been in the job 3 months. It's just absolutely insane. Because it's just like debt-free capital right now in the US. It's really wild, wild west. And a lot of these SaaS companies are getting funding. It's very hard to compete. And me personally, I know this is probably a wee bit controversial, but I'm not averse to a little bit of controversy. This fucking building company culture with a remote company, I don't really buy into it. I just feel like it's not that it's impossible. I think there's some companies that do, but I feel like you can't build that proper bond with your team if you're not like eyeball to eyeball. So people are just bouncing for just a wee bit more money. It's just brutal. There's also a lot of shit people that are leaving agencies, which is great because then you don't have to fire them.
We have the same issue with trying to scale. I mean, we've been very successful. Hi, Andy, by the way, first time here. Thanks, Rachel, for the invite. We're a services company, e-commerce services company, and it's brutal. We have offices in North America, Latin America, and in China, and it's the same thing everywhere. And what I'm interested in seeing is, okay, with all these crazy rates that people are, demanding, we need the talent. We've got the job. We got the clients. We won deals. Got to deliver them. What's going to happen with the rates? When is this going to hit people's margin, or are we going to see?
It has to.
Well, it's either that or everybody's rates are going to go up. So the whole thing's going to get inflated. And when are the clients willing to pay for that? Right. That's going to be the big ugly conversation.
Yeah, interesting. We made that decision here that for any existing customer that has any type of like rate that's been charged for a year plus, we'll obviously honor that. But any new customer that we've never done business with, it's a new price, and we're okay with them leaving because, as you guys know, the demand has been so high recently that we have a lineup of people that want to get a quote from us. So I rather say no more and then get one more qualified yes, even though it might decrease the amount of like new customers. We're okay with that because, as everyone knows, scaling is so hard with staff and people that even if I had more work, I can't do it anyway. So
right, and we're not a charity, right? We need
exactly.
we actually need to make money, right?
And
So,
that's the basics of the economy.
How many agencies
Right.
run their business like they're running a fucking charity? It's so shocking to me.
Well,
Yeah.
well, I don't know about anyone here, but like I started as a freelancer, and like you kind of like go through that, right? It's part of the growing pains of like understanding like business and like dealing with customers. That like, you know, you quote something 10 hours, but you're 18 hours in, but you're still charging 10 hours. Like you do at one point have to learn how to like get out of that habit.
I always try to internally.
Sorry.
Internally, we talk about how you wouldn't call your lawyer and ask them to spend an hour of your time, their time to give you information and guidance and not expect a bill. But in our business, everybody thinks your time is worth nothing. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
That we're also hungry for their business. Yeah. Guess what?
Just do
Those
it for
tables
free.
are turning.
We don't care.
Yeah, exactly. Just because we love you. Of course. Right? Nah.
Yeah, we're not. We're doing the same. We're sticking to our guns. If people don't want to see the value in what we offer and what we charge, they can move on, basically.
I mean, interestingly, we have about 4 or 5 really long-term clients, enterprise level, and every single one, we have like 2-3 year agreements with them, and we've renegotiated with every single one, and they have all understood the current economies. And so we've had a little bit of pushback, but through showing that, hey, look, this is what you've been paying. These are the rates that are on the market. It's not sustainable. And when we walk them through that, they're like, no, that's fair. We're happy with your work. Okay, great. That's an easier conversation to have when you have the relationship. So that's been great. But it's, Julian, to your point, going out and the new clients, when you're competing against people who may be very, very hungry to get that next deal to just stay afloat, that's tough.
Yeah, and we're in a pretty competitive market because you have a lot of up and coming people, especially like some Upwork and Fiverr and the marketplace opening up. A lot of people that are freelancers who are up and coming in the game that are undercutting each other. For me, with the work that I do with agencies, I think that you have to play fair. And I think that if you're of that level, you cannot be eating out of the same pool as people that are just starting. That's unreasonable for them, because if you're charging $10,000 and they're charging $10,000, but your $10,000 packs a punch because you've got a massive portfolio, it's totally unfair on them being able to cut their teeth and earn their stripes in the industry. And you just need to grow a pair of bollocks and play with the big dogs. You need to charge the right amount of money that those. I've got some agencies, it depends on where you're from. Usually in the UK, hourly rates are somewhere in at around £100 an hour. Euros, it's probably somewhere in around 100, 120. US, it's probably somewhere in at around $175 an hour. And Canada is probably, I think, 150 to 200. I have a lot of agencies that are charging significantly less. I have other agencies, some agencies I work with charge $250 an hour and have no issue getting that right because they're really good at sales and they're able to communicate their value. But what you can't do is you can't undercut people. You can't be then trying to steal food out from underneath other people. And I personally think, like, if we're going to have to, from the agency side, if you're going to have to, like, an average developer now in the US is going to cost you 100, 150. Project manager, some between 70 and 100. So that has to be reflected somewhere. Otherwise, your margins are going to be tighter. And if you have, let's just say you're in the US, you've got a developer who's going to cost 120 billable hours a month times, 175. Then that developer is going to give you 250K a year of billable time if they're 75% billable. If you're paying them 150, your profit margins on them are significantly less, plus the project management, plus the administration, plus the non-billable, plus the sales, plus the scope creep, plus all the contingency that wasn't included. So there has to be some give and take, like you keeping your rates low so you can bring in more business. It just does not cut it.
It's a race to the bottom, really.
Yeah. Hey, Rachel, can I make a comment?
Of course.
So, hi guys. So I'm Gentian Cheryl, based out of New York, and I just shared on the chat an article from McKinsey on employees massively leaving companies, but also, like what attracts them, where are they going? And some interesting and relevant facts on there is that when employers were asked why their people had quit, for example, us, as most of us are employers here on this call, they cited compensation, work-life balance, and poor physical and emotional health. You can read this article, it's really lengthy and some like really good charts. However, these issues did matter to employees, the article says, but not as much as us employers thought that they did. By contrast, from the employee perspective now, the reasons for quitting were that they didn't feel valued by their organization. 54% of the employees leaving the job. 52% of them, they didn't feel valued by their managers. And also 51% of them didn't feel a sense of belonging at all. So from our perspective now, is our work environment just transactional? The question is like, do we just respond to this attrition of employees by raising compensation, paying them more? Or do we just let them go? By raising the compensation, we are unwittingly telling them, telling our people that this relationship is only transactional. And the only reason that they have to stay is because of the paycheck. So our very best people will always have a better cash offer from another competitor or somewhere else. So do we want to solve problems of these people leaving? Do we want to, to solve the problem by just giving them a raise, or do we have to like become better as an organization to care for people and for what really matters to our employees? So this is kind of the big question.
So I feel like it's a bit of a catch-22 though. And again, I'm going to say something that's a little bit controversial. A lot of fucking competition right now. Like, I work with a lot of agency employees, and most of them are amazing, and then there's a fraction of them that have just become so precious and so soft. I also understand that working from home has exacerbated some of the mental health and well-being challenges that everybody faces, especially as an entrepreneur. We face that more than employees, but it's the same for everyone, right? It's not normal for us to be living in this situation. At Lisbon last week, it was the first time most of the people had actually been outside of the country and met people at scale. So I think that working from home and COVID and the pandemic has highlighted a lot of gaps in leadership. As business owners and agency owners, it's definitely highlighted a lot of those gaps and shortcomings. It's also highlighted the massive need to have a proper management or leadership team in place. Typically, I find a lot of business owners are terrible, Adrian, at delegation. Actually, I said out loud.
Ouch.
That was my inside voice. I didn't realize I said that one out loud. But really terrible.
I can do it all.
Apart from delegate. The only thing you can't do all of is delegation.
Yeah.
But yeah, actually like delegating and passing on some of those softer skills of being a good manager and really taking pride in your team and getting people in the team to be empathetic, getting them to be focused on numbers, but at the same time, not treating it like it's a Nazi concentration camp as well. A lot of this stuff, because it's all done, which is why the point I made earlier, doing all this stuff remotely has really exacerbated the problem, because you have a thing where you have like the letter of the law and the spirit of the law, and sometimes everything is done through Slack and it just gets lost in translation. Sometimes, my assistant is Colombian, and sometimes he sends me email and I'm like, fucking say that to my face. Like, would you actually say that to my face that you put in an email? But it just got lost in translation because his culture and how I communicate are so different. So I for sure, obviously there's a big reason why there's a massive resignation. And also, let's be honest, there's a lot of fucking money going around. I don't care what people say they fill in these surveys and like, I didn't feel appreciated. And I just feel like people didn't tell me every day how fabulous I was. No, bitch, you got $20,000 more money. That's why you left the job. Let's be real. Let's not fuck around here. So, these surveys are great and everything, and I think we can all try and be the world's best leaders, but if people are going to offer you more money. When I was an employee, if somebody like that example I gave you earlier, where she was literally offered an extra 100 grand, somebody came to me with an extra 100 grand, that is very difficult to say no to.
It's difficult to counter as well. You know, you might consider moving up 20% or something, you know, to retain somebody, or there's a limit, but 100%, you know, you start thinking, can I get two people? But the reality is you can't get two people to replace the one person. So we were talking about this yesterday, right? Just about retention and you know, what we're trying to do to build a culture of getting people that like to be outside and want to be here, and will like to work for the companies that we work for. And hopefully that's enough. But the reality is yeah, they're going to get value. You know what happens is, or what I see happening is that they'll get really good and then go to a brand, you know.
For sure.
Yeah, that happens,
kinda,
especially if you're hiring juniors or people out of the gate that you're taking time to like train. For sure, that does happen. Yeah, you're right. We've encountered that a few times.
There is a clause in our contract about that kind of covers the, you know, hiring or approaching any of the employees to hire. I mean, we never had that problem come up, but contractually, they're not allowed to, you know, come directly to an employee to try to take them.
I know, Adrian, but let's be honest, you're not going to be suing any of them.
Yeah, probably not.
You'll just roll over and let them tickle your belly.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it always depends, right, on the situation. But we're probably never going to enforce that. But that's the likely jump for us would be one of those, because there's no other agency in town. And if you moved here to live this lifestyle, I mean, you can ski every day or that kind of makes up for some cash in places. Or you get, you know, access to gear, snowboards, skis, helmets, apparel, that kind of stuff where, you know, you don't have to buy that stuff. That makes it better. Or you get it at half off.
I think in general, and Gentian, I agree with your sentiment. I think that there does need to be a good sense of company culture, and there needs to be more than just about the money if people are going to join. I just literally got off the back of 2 interviews for 2 different agencies. And one guy is leaving a very reputable agency to come to another agency, and it's not even a money thing for him, it's just the opportunity to grow. So for me, I think that when your agency reaches a certain size, probably in and around the 15 to 20, you need to have backups for all of your key roles, and you need to have a core team of people that you are grooming, which is kind of a weird word, but you're grooming for like leadership or more senior roles, and incentivize them in some way if they can work towards, if there's like some sort of vested shares or vested equity, or they can work towards some sort of incentive in the company. And God forgive me for saying this out loud. Well, I've said worse on this call, but the rest are just effectively disposable. You have to accept that you can just switch them out. They're just like pawns on a chessboard. You're going to have some people that are pieces that you really want to keep, and the pawns, you just kind of move them around and replace them as you need to. That's typically what I see. I have some agencies that have amazing team members that have been offered insane amounts of money to leave, like double, triple the amount they're on now, and they will never leave because they believe so much in what the business owner is doing and the vision for the company, and feel super valued and really feel part of that team. And there is some sort of long-term them, and they'll never go. And then other people that have had that and they just bounce. Anyway, I've waffled on long enough. I don't want to call any more employees pussies because I did that in the last call.
I'd like to sort of say something sort of almost on the other end of the spectrum. So I've been working now solo for this year. I left my job at Shop Creatify, hi Ross, at the end of last year. So I'm in a space where I, as a designer and developer, am doing mostly contract work and also planning my own agency for next year.
I treated Quentin like absolute crap.
Oh man, like just the bondage here, Ross. Why did you have to do that to me? Anyway, so Ross and I have known each other for about 10 years now. I'd like to say that things that I've learned in the last 10 years of my career. So designers and developers are in demand now more than ever. And I don't think that that's going to change. And what I'm seeing is that there's there's a power tension there between, I want, this package, and there's this tension which is naturally going to exist. But my experience in the last 7 or so years of my career, since I've been comfortable calling myself senior, every job that I have left, I've actually really loved the experience of working there, the people that I worked with, even the work that I was doing. But what was said earlier, which is absolutely true, is that I didn't feel like I was growing. So I think that it's fair to absolutely consider the monetary compensation for employees, and that definitely needs to be competitive. But also there are intangibles that you need to offer as well. And that can be type of work. Perhaps you can switch, depending on how your HR structure works, you can switch out employees into different teams, different parts, so they're doing slightly different, a bigger variety of work rather than just what they're used to working on, giving them opportunities to work for different clients, different languages, and helping them grow. I think that, obviously I'm an anecdotal case, but if that had been the case for me, I might not have left some of the positions that I was working in maybe 5-6 years ago. So just food for thought there, just in case it rings any bells for anybody.
The one thing I'll say to that, Quentin, go ahead, Andy. Go ahead.
No, sorry, Julian. Go ahead. Sorry.
So Quentin, I was like in your exact role like 8 years ago, where I was a freelancer, didn't have any employees. And the one thing I'll say is, even though you might think that some other jobs you would like to have stayed, once you go on this path and like you get a couple of years under your belt, you have a few regular customers, you'll never go back. Like, it is a nice lifestyle if you're good at your trade and you have freelance and entrepreneurial spirit. You don't have to grow crazy big. There's so much gig economy work out there, and marketplaces. LinkedIn is coming out with their own by the end of this year, I believe. It's wild. So yeah, kudos to you. Sorry about that, Ross. But hopefully you guys can still collaborate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. I've dealt with employees that left and they are freelancers, and sure, I make less margins on them. I don't got to pay them every 2 weeks. So it is what it is. It's the world we live in now. It's like everyone's got to adapt, even including.
I think a cool element of the whole situation with Quentin that if you don't mind me sharing, I won't go into too much detail, but Quentin and I was a production manager for an agency that I didn't own at the time, and I hired Quentin as my replacement. I then moved off and then poached him twice. So he joined me in a startup. I left that startup. Then I convinced him to come and join Shop Creatify, which he did. He worked with me for a number of years and really got it up to where it is now. But ultimately, just stop me if you feel this is overshare, Quentin. But I encouraged Quentin to move on, not because I didn't like his work and not because there were massive issues between us, just that he wasn't as happy as what he would be in either a different environment or working just for himself, which he's doing now. And having mentioned the possibility of starting his own agency is great, because I can maybe mentor you to some degree there. So I think my business is quite strong at the moment. I've actually got 2 of his siblings working with me still. It's interesting, let's put it that way. But, Quentin's an incredible, we have the Shopify ecosystem is quite small, interestingly enough, across the globe, that there are people that he's doing work for that I'm in another mastermind with, and that's it's really interesting how it all works out. But in terms of the individual, Quentin and others, there are going to be those people that aren't compatible. Often there's just a compatibility mismatch, and sometimes that's with clients as well. We've had to fire clients this year that we don't horribly dislike. We just couldn't service them well enough, or they weren't able to they couldn't allow us to bring our A game to what they needed, and the ROI that they were receiving wasn't sufficient for us to feel that it should continue. Some of them were too small, some of them had shitty staff members on their side that were making our lives hell. Whatever the case is, compatibility is a big a big factor. Like, I mean, I've actually broken. We've recently been putting together a database of like human resources, but then there's also these entities, partners, clients, and then team members. And it's interesting to look at it from that like bird's eye view and realize that there are all these sort of humans behind that, and the relationships, and some of them are going to work, some of them aren't. You know, it's just a matter of nurturing the ones that are good. You know, letting some of them go. Some of them can kind of tick along, but yeah, I suppose we started with the hiring or firing or retention of people. I don't know. Like I've been sitting here listening to. Sorry, I forget the name. I'm trying to find your face on my screen here, but the mention of like nurturing people's mental health, for instance. Like I'm a mental health advocate. You know, I make no bones about it. You know, I see somebody occasionally and so on. But there's also a line where I think, you know, the business shouldn't need to get too involved. You know, there should be a line where it's okay. I respect that you are having a tough time. How can we help you through that? But ultimately, the business needs to go on as well. And that's maybe a line where I've found that we're willing to cater for that, but also not let it become a problem for the business, because the business is there. It is an entity itself that needs to thrive in some way or survive at the very least. You know, so
if I can add something to that, Ross, very briefly, my experience as somebody who has dealt with a lot of mental illness myself and struggle, luckily things have improved now. I also see somebody pretty much weekly now. I think that it's very valid, and I think it's a very valuable conversation that's happening in tech, in industry, everywhere right now. This focus on mental health is absolutely necessary, especially with the pandemic and especially with all the changes that have been happening around that. What I will say to that though, in counterpoint, is that like while I have empathy and sympathy for people that I work with mental health challenges, ultimately, it is the individual's responsibility also to make sure that their health is good, that they're making the changes that they need to. And I can echo Ross. I mean, effectively, the business has to, the businesses has to be. Businesses are made up of people, and the people are very important. But there is a bottom line. There are clients that need to be serviced, and you can bend over backwards, but I think it comes down to boundaries, what you're employing your employees for and what their responsibilities are and whether they're able to meet those responsibilities. And you can absolutely make space for mental health in that conversation. But that's also a very important thing to keep in mind as a business owner, is it's not just about the mental health challenges. We have to make room for both sides here.
Well said.
I would also say as well, and I'm saying this and speaking for myself, because I work with all entrepreneurs and I get phone calls. I've had 5 this year, 1 which was this week, with business owners who have contacted me because they're dealing with suicidal tendencies. Now, the fact that they feel comfortable to come and talk to me is demonstrates that we have a good relationship. They trust me. Whether I'm qualified to actually have that conversation with someone and be able to give them the support that they need, it's exactly the same. A lot of entrepreneurs, we're in an industry that's 92% of agencies in e-commerce are run by men. And this is not me saying the men-women debate, whatever, but I think women, it's much more natural for a woman to be able to have that maternal and empathetic side when somebody is dealing with something that's pretty sensitive. And it's more natural for a man to be like, holy fuck, this feels awkward. I feel like I probably don't want to talk about it. Like, I don't know what to say. And as entrepreneurs, we are not taught to have those conversations. And if you don't know how to handle a conversation like that, you could end up doing more harm than good. So I have an example of an agency where he had a guy seriously underperforming. He brought the guy in to speak to him, and the guy said, look, I'm dealing with some personal shit. Paid for him to go and see a therapist. And the therapist basically said, yeah, you're clinically depressed. You need to get medicated. And as soon as the therapy started, he just unraveled and it went from bad to worse. We had to then fire him or let him go. And the guy was like, that's totally fine. The business owner still paid for a 12-part course of therapy for him to go and see this therapist and get the help he needed. But he was dragging the company down, and he was dragging down the people in his team that were then dealing with having to overwork and burnout because he was not able to perform. So of course you have to do what the right thing is. And I don't know if this works everywhere, but I know in the UK they have a Slack extension called Spill Chat, and that's a really good place that businesses can basically pay, like it's all anonymous, and the employees can go in and book a therapy session, and the company then pays for it. And a lot of my agencies, Blend Commerce, are huge advocates of it. Full Fat Commerce, big advocates. Not some ones, they all use it, and a lot of their team do take advantage. At least a couple of people every single month. But the business still needs to go on. Like, you still need to be able to run a business, and people need to perform. Unfortunately, that's the reality. I don't sound like a stone cold bitch, but it is what it is. We're not in business to run charities. Otherwise, we just all join a Tibetan monk farm and then like farm cabbages or whatever they do. I'm not sure. I don't know what their vegetable of choice is.
I'd be up for trying that about now, I tell you.
Yeah, you have a vegetable farm up on the hill somewhere.
Yeah, bring it on, I say. Let's try it.
I think for me, just in a word, like the key is just good boundaries. Like, there has to be clear expectations set, and you have to be transparent and clear to people what you expect from them, and also how you're able and willing to help, but also that it is their responsibility.
Totally. Well, that all got very emotional, didn't it? That was very. I feel like I need to go outside and punch someone in the face now, just to kind of get myself back in the game.
I think I might have missed something, because this conversation started with you mentioning, Rachel, that, like, you know, everybody's losing staff. Is this like something that I missed?
No,
is
no,
everybody
we're
losing staff?
Yeah, a lot of agencies are losing staff. Like, they call it like the Great Resignation. So there's a lot of people that are jumping ship. And
I thought it was just like the restaurant industry in the States, because they're getting paid so badly.
No, it's bled over into basically everybody's reconsidering their life choices. You know, what they've decided to do. We just hired somebody that's starting next week that was an engineer, a civil engineer. You know, went to school, got an engineering degree, and he's going to come over and be a project manager. He didn't like what he was doing. Same thing or they don't like where they're located, right? I'm a Californian, so I feel like I can say this. You know, California is just full of people, and it's way too expensive, and taxes are terrible, and it's congested. And so those folks want to move to places like Idaho, where there's nobody here. There's 20,000 people. Then we get California plates rolling in every single day, because people are migrating or resigning from what they were doing and changing their life choices, reconsidering their life choices.
I live in a travel trailer full time with my wife. We've been traveling the country for the last year and a half, and we love it. And everyone that follows us on Instagram, shameless plug, out doing stuff. They're just like, how can I do what you're doing? You're actually kind of growing your agency on the road. That's awesome. They want that freedom to be able to do that. And I think the overall trend that I'm seeing here is people not only want to, you know, yes, it's pay, yes, it's a work-life balance, but they want to have really the flexibility to say, on Wednesday, I want to be able to go to a national park. On, you know, Tuesday, I want to be able to do that. So maybe we are shifting to, instead of having a W-2 full-time employee, to having contractors that we specifically pick for a specific project, and they're in and out that way. What does everyone think about that kind of hybrid approach? We have a core group of folks who are probably W-2 and full time, and then you have folks who are more kind of on the fringe.
Well,
I think, go on.
No, please, Sarkis, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think it depends what type of business you have. If your business is being built around a retention model, less projecty and more retention based ongoing work with clients, I think the idea of go to freelancers for your projects is quite risky because they could disappear one day or decide to do something different. And then going back to what Rachel said is, there's a lot of agencies out there, right? If we're all on the phone at the moment, there's a lot of people doing the same thing. I think what separates people is how good you do it and the level of service and attention you give to your customers. And I think you can only achieve that through having continuity in your team, speaking to the same people every day, building relationships with people, bringing new blood into the company, training them in the way that your company's run and the type of clients you've got. That's just my opinion. I think you need that to build a seriously consistent agency that just consistently delivers. If you use freelancers for a lot of the work, I think you could end up in problems. Personally, I think freelancers are good as experts to bring in when you have very high-end work or you need some advice on how to do stuff, but not as a consistent approach to how to run your business. Otherwise, I just think you get too many gaps that occur.
Yeah, really well said, Sarkis. I couldn't agree more. What we decided to implement at our agency because of the difficulty to hire people full time is, well, firstly, you're absolutely right, Sarkis. You need consistency in your business. You need those people that are the faces of your business, that are interacting with your customers, whether it's dealing for the project management side, developers interact with your customers directly. But there's also the reality that, we do live in a global economy and business. And, we decided to do 75-25 rule for production. So as soon as we have overspill, our internal team is completely booked. What we do is we'll outsource to already vetted freelancers, 75% of the project, but then the polishing part will come in-house. So the customer will never have any knowledge that it was outsourced. If they were to ask, it would probably be straightforward with them, but the last 25% is what the customer really sees anyways. They don't really care that the project was done properly with a PHP framework, and it was object oriented and it was documented. The customers won't care about that part, but we do internally, obviously, and I'm sure everyone here would as well. The quality would be so important, but that last 25% makes it a little easier to use a freelancing gig economy.
When you do that, so I love everything both of you have said. We have the same thing. We really want to maintain high quality, and I think that the only way to do that at the highest level is an internal team. But when you do bring in freelancers as for capacity or as experts, how much do you have onboarding processes that you go through with them? How much do you sort of treat them like they're joining your team to maintain some of that quality? And that's expensive to do.
Yeah, for sure. Well, for sure, what I do is I tend to go toward a higher niche of freelancer, because I know I'm not going to make as much money, but my nut is already covered because my team has already been vouched for their time for that month or for that quarter. So I know everything above, I'm going to be making less, but it's all gravy at that point. So I'd rather make less and then get someone really validated. You can use services like TopTool or Codable, for example, if we're talking about PHP and WordPress and just general programming. But then you need to have your own, not only onboarding procedures, but you need to have your own quote unquote templates in terms of when you do this type of project, we always do it in this way. So if you're using Valet, you're using a framework, your DevOps and all that kind of stuff, have your DevOps as cloud-based as possible and easy to interact with people. And if it's a freelancer you're going to use on the regular, you can invite them to your Slack team channel, something along those lines, if that's really necessary. Or just as long as you have someone internally maintain a relationship with that freelancer, like your account manager or project manager. So they have that open line of communication. But, as long as they're not really needed on the customer side, as long as internally you can take care of everything that you need to get in terms of information or assets from the customer to start the project, and then you can relay updates to them, then the freelancer is definitely a great option for that. But once again, I agree with Sarkis saying that you can't rely on a freelancer for your day-to-day. And you're absolutely right, you can't. It's a recipe for failure, unfortunately. But having someone there is going to do 50-75% of the project, and then you bring in and you do the 25%, it's a pretty good recipe that's worked for us, and allows you to scale. Where in a world and economy which is very hard to right now because of the hiring problems.
Well,
The other thing, oh, sorry. I was just going to add the one thing that we've learned to do is with because we need contractors, we're a services organization, you know, peaks and troughs and all that. We don't do short-term or month-to-month contracting arrangements. When we go out to bring in contractors, we'll have, you know, a minimum contract. It'll be, you know, I think our minimum is maybe 6 months, but between 6 months to a year. So we'll make that investment to say, hey, we will supply you with work. And that then allows us to offset that onboarding process. So we can still have them go through the full onboarding process. That's what helps ensure our quality control and all that. And the flip side is they know they've got a good book of business for the next 6, 9, 12, whatever we sign them up for, right? So it makes it work. And then the relationship feels more like, you know, a cousin rather than the plumber, you know, in the family. And that's that's worked really well for us.
Yeah, that actually is a really, really good point, Andy. And I do that with our designer. She's actually not a full-time employee, but
yeah,
she's a freelancer, and we've been working with her so well, and she's great, that we decided to put her on a retainer. Say, look, I'm going to guarantee you, you know, 50 hours a month, but I'm going to pay you every month, regardless if I use them. We're going to calculate them every quarter, make sure we just want to make sure, like you said, Andy, that they consider it to be part of like the family. And Ray, that helps a lot too with quality control.
Yeah, we did the same exact thing. Our designers, he's technically a contractor, but he's kind of foot half in the door. He shows up to our stand-up meetings most days.
There you go.
Yeah. Interesting, guys. Like I've been doing this for 11 years. Some of us here might have been doing it for longer. We never work with a freelancer because it goes against, you know, like you have no control. The freelancers, I don't know if someone is a freelancer here, it's like kind of a predatory approach that they want to make the most buck for the least amount of effort possible. And there is no commitment. They work for merchants. It works out well, but even then the daily rates are like astronomical. So we try to avoid them. We have, however, contractors like our designer, for example. She's in Croatia. She's been with us for 4 years. We pay her top dollar, but she is kind of like a full-time contractor dedicated to us. We have an entity created for the UK employees, for example, where they are full-time employees of the UK entity. We have in Finland the same. We have in Albania the same, which is where I'm originally from. But we cannot do that for every country. We have a guy in Ukraine that has been with us for many years, but we cannot create a company, you know, like a subsidiary of the US corporation in every country because it becomes a really big mess. So you need to find that fine balance. But in the US, if you are to make like the designer, for example, she wants to move up. If we make her like the head of design, legally you cannot do that because she's not part of our like US corporation, and the US can come after us, or the Croatian government can come after us. So it can become like really tricky. But if you are to deliver the work, you know, you cannot do it with freelancers. I don't believe in it. I've never used one because it goes, you know, like they are not committed. There is no sense of value from the organization, from their manager. And also is that sense of belonging, which is the three main reasons why we are seeing the great, you know, like resignation of employees based on the McKinsey article that I mentioned before. So it's kind of tricky. If you are to build a solid company, I would never ever rely on a freelancer. I have people that have been with us full time, and sometimes it worries me. You know, like, hey, will this person answer the phone? You know, like when there is like an emergency or when they are on call. You know, like, or what do I do if they are a freelancer? They don't give rats, but you know, for anything.
You know, just to reply to that, Gentian, I agree and disagree with you. For sure, you're right. That's definitely a big risk when you're going after freelancers. But you did mention you have a contractor that's, you know, not part of the company, but they're treated like they're part of the company. So I think you really need to invest the time and actually consider it like a proper business investment to find your close group of contractors, freelancers, whatever you want to call them, that you can rely on, but not to day to day. For sure, never day to day. I agree with you, Genty, on that. Way too risky, too many issues. But if you have a 50, 75% rule saying, okay, well, we're going to outsource X amount percentage, outsource it, then we polish off in-house and deliver it to the customer. I think it's a great way to grow in terms of just financially and, you know, taking advantage of this great gig economy. Try to use your own network first. Don't rely on like Upwork or any of these marketplaces at first. Kind of like directed to you, Ray, another thing that we did was we invested like, you know, $5,000 to $10,000 on just making mock projects, being like, they're not customer related, and they're just to see what everyone their chops are, basically.
Yeah.
So there's no risk. You are risking the money, unfortunately, but usually you will end up with, like, in your personal network, 2 to 4 proper contractors, freelancers that you can then rely on. And you know, and that might be worth 5-10 grand. I know for us it is, because it allow us to then get to the next level, and it's definitely cheaper than hiring someone internally.
You mean you created mock projects as, like, you know, code challenges, or like for the hiring process, or as training, or?
Yeah.
No, actually, like real life examples, being like, let's say for me, for example, we're a WordPress agency and we have like some medium-sized businesses, large businesses. So we'll go with like you know, a website that we see constantly, right? So you're looking for those common factors amongst all your projects. And like, we know that, like, we use either a Generate Press for our lower end tiered projects, or we have on Sage, on a Sage theme for our higher end, more complex projects. So we create mock scenarios where, like, okay, we need to connect to this API and we need this to output and all this kind of stuff. And then we say, go for it. And this is kind of like the direction that we want in terms of like quality and like the code direction. And then you get them back, but there's no customer waiting on you. You know what I mean? So you go through that process of like filtering out all those people, so that when you get that customer, you can act fast and you have someone that you can rely on.
So you're just saying, like, that's just to like have the team ready for scenarios, or is that for like vetting potential like freelancer hires?
More vetting.
Yeah,
vetting the potential freelancer or contract work person. It's a great way to do it. It definitely, you lose out. Obviously, you're not gonna get that money back, but it's an investment in your business and in your own personal network.
I mean, the cost of a mishire is not worth it.
Massive, much more than that. So I think 5-10 grand is worth it. For us, it is. And you know, we have like our own close network of people that we can rely on when we have overspill. I would never like post something on Upwork or Codable, for example. We're just not there yet, you know. Like, and I wouldn't want to be. I'd rather rely on, like, you know, networks like this. This is great if I meet people who are freelancers or whatever and I can give work to.
It's all about the relationships you build with people. To be honest, everyone's going to do things differently. We all run different agencies, whether you're freelance, contract, permanent, doesn't matter. You're going to have good people if you build the relationships with them. Doesn't matter how you pay them. Is my take on it. You know, we don't have a lot of freelancers, but with every single one we do a couple of things you guys mentioned. So they have an annual contract with us, and they have a guaranteed retainer on a monthly fee, even if we don't give them any work. But the thing that Bridget and I do invest time in and do is we have at least an hour's call every month with every single freelancer. Even if they haven't done work for us for 6 months, we have a call every month with them, find out how life is going, what they're up to, what they're working on, what are they pissed off with, what's going well for them. And inevitably, if you do that and you genuinely care about people, when you give them work, they'll take care of your customers for you, and they won't just piss off or try to rip you off. And I think that's the key. Build good relationships with people, and it doesn't matter how you pay them, they'll do a good job for you. And if they don't, then you are extremely you don't know how to judge people very well, and you should maybe try another career.
I agree. Sorry, because I think, you know, just looking at everything that's going on, no matter what your view is, as a business, running a business as we go forward is going to change, right? There's going to be more and more Quintins out there. I'm talking the own my own agency Quintin, who are just really, really talented people. And or who was it David in his trailer? I'm very jealous. I'm in New York. We decided to go and buy one. Turns out everybody had already bought every single RV in New York by that point. So we were out of luck. But as a business, we're going to have to learn how to mix these models, because the talent is going to dictate how they want to work. We can't control that. So we have to, there's something that we're actively working on internally. How do we do this? Some of the things that Sarkis mentioned about having calls, on a regular basis, just letting people know, hey, we value you. We see you as number 2 in this area. We want to work with you to, get promoted, all that kind of stuff. We have to learn to do it differently, because it is going to be different. We can't just ignore that.
Yeah.
I wanted to give one more perspective from my side, just as somebody that's been working with a ton of agencies this year, and has been onboarded to every project management platform you can imagine. It's been wild. It's been fun. I can't emphasize more strongly how important that relationship aspect is. So, I mean, I'm grateful that when I started contracting and freelancing, I already had a good network in the Shopify community, and that allowed me to speak to people that I've already known for years, and they would invite me, hey, we know you do good work. Do you want to come work with us for a couple of projects? And what it's given me is like a very nice window into how different agencies run, and it's so fascinating to me, because I love seeing how they lay their processes out and how they do things differently, what the company culture is. But bar none, the thing that keeps me coming back to work with these agencies is the sense of appreciation that I feel for them. Even if the project fee we needed to negotiate at the very beginning, we're not sure if we can pay you that. If the work is good, if it's a great design, if it's going to be a challenging project for me to execute on, I will feel personally, and I can't speak for all designers and developers, I will personally feel okay with taking that compromise in the name of both growing myself as a professional, but also building relationships. And the long-term relationships worth far more, because I've spoken to so many agencies and worked with so many agencies that do the contractor model. They have essentially employees that have worked with them for over 10 years that they've never signed an employment contract with. They're just so loyal because they treat them well. And, it's like very Web 3.0. You don't need to install like the 50 slide in the office, or you don't need to have like games night on Zoom or whatever it is. But depending on how the culture is set up and if it's done authentically, it really works. And I feel like with some of the agencies that I work with, I feel like, hey, I've got a bunch of friends now that I can geek out to about dev stuff, or just have nice chats with the business owner about how things are going and learning from them as well and growing in my experience. So I think and also that lends itself to flexibility. And I know that there are pros and cons to remote work and all of this, but it's something that I think we as like just an industry are going to have to learn where the happy medium is. So very interesting times.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, I've got a hard stop in 3 minutes. I have to talk to another agency in Montreal. Interesting.
Which one, may I ask, or you want to indulge?
I can't remember. I need to check. It's like the fourth agency I've spoken to this quarter from Montreal. I didn't realize there were so many.
Yeah,
one of the things that I want to talk about, but we're not going to have time, is mergers and acquisitions. I don't know if some of you have heard. I saw the message from Ross. I saw that you've merged. If you merged with another team, or what was your post about?
Yeah, cool. I thought that was going to get missed. No, not a merge, nor an acquisition, but it's a partnership. It's with the company that I used to work at. I've kept in touch with them. The original founder has moved off through having taken a couple million in funding for their incubated startup called Snaplify, which is an edutech space. It's like e-textbooks, kind of like Kindle, where you can write in the margins and so on. And so we're under this Realm Group umbrella. It's Shop Creatify, Snaplify, and Realm Digital. So we're able to, we've got a now sort of semi-formal group of executives that we can discuss the things like what we're discussing here, obviously a little bit more openly with numbers on the table and so on, sharing human resources, sharing staff, obviously with a little bit of a, being separate business entities, one pays the other, slightly preferential rates or whatever. So we scratch each other's backs. But yeah, actually, I was going to ask, and the reason that it was front of mind when we came into the call, Rachel, can I invite Simon, the CEO of Realm, to this for future chats?
Sure. I think it's probably a conversation for our next roundtable, because anybody's interested, I can share some of the stuff around, but 2 agencies in the UK exited. We make website exited for an 8x multiple, which was pretty interesting because they were doing less than 5 million. And less than 20% EBITDA. To get an 8x is a lot for this market. So
that means Alex and Piers are out.
I don't know. I don't know if they're fully out. It seems like Alex is, and I think Piers is there. I think he's like, whatever the exit looks like, there's probably going to be some sort of buyout, or it's going to be a bit of time.
Sorry, Rachel, the company was an agency, you said?
We make websites.
Okay.
One of the first in the UK, Shopify Plus agency.
Yeah.
A lot of recurring revenue.
Well, I mean, all the numbers are online, so I'm not sharing any. I didn't get the information from them. I got it from online.
They had some big brands. They had Hasbro. I can't remember who else.
Big brands, but they only did 4.7. I mean, this is sterling. They only did 4.7 mil last year with a 1.3 EBITDA. So I mean, according to that, they had like an 8 and 8.17x. So to get that amount of exits is pretty. It's pretty impressive. And then another agency in the UK that's pretty well known for doing luxury e-commerce in the Shopify Plus space, Foster, they've also exited and joined the group. So to quote somebody else, this is not my term. I would love to coin this as something that I came up with, but I'm not that smart. It's a pretty frothy market right now. I feel like in the next 12 to 18 months, there's going to be a lot of, actually my focus going into next year, I'm doubling down on working closely with agencies that want to exit or position themselves for exit in the next 2 to 3 years. That's the work that I'm going to be doing. But it is probably for our next roundtable. It's a really interesting topic. And I think that every agency should be running their business as if they were looking to exit, because it means that when people come knocking, which they are, there's a lot of money right now. I don't know how long that money is going to last for, probably another couple of years, but probably not for much longer. But I feel confident. I know 5 or 6 agencies, well, 3 or 4 agencies that I'm working with, we're priming for exit next year, some pretty well-known ones, and then 5 or 6 agencies that are well-known in the Shopify space, I know that are gearing up for exit. So very interesting space. Anybody that wants to speak about exits, drop me an email, give me a shout.
Yeah.
I just messaged you, Rachel. Okay, I'm working on our 1 to 2 year exit plan right now, 2 year max. So please reach out.
You need to get your shit together.
Fucking right.
In the shape. But if people are offering that much exit, because usually it's like if you're under 5 mil, you can expect to have like a 2 to 6, and more than 5 mil, you can expect like a 6 to 8, 6 to 10 exits, and then 10 to 20, I think it's around 11. So I don't know. It's exciting times for me because I just need to take equity in all these businesses, and then I can exit in 2 years. Really enjoy living on an island, but I don't have big enough balls for that kind of question. Anyway, okay, I'm late for the guy that I need to speak to. This was great. I really enjoyed this. Thank you for sharing. Next call, maybe I'll put the topic down for M&A. If anybody wants to talk to that beforehand, let me know. There's a couple of agencies that I'm working with. Some are exiting alone, some are exiting as part of a roll-up. So if anybody is interested in talking about exits or wants to be connected with people who know that space really well, I can make introductions. I know a really good team in Canada, actually, Julian, so I can connect you with those guys.
Can you email me, Rachel, please? I'd love to connect with you on a one-on-one
basis. Email me because I'll forget.
Okay.
If I may propose another topic, if I may, if that's not one that everyone wants, is I'd be interested to know about funding sources for our clients. So merchants that have a great idea, they have a product, but they need some additional capital to manufacture or pay our agency fee, whatever the case is.
We met about 20 of those at Web Summit last week, right?
Oh, really?
Ross, check out Outfund.
Okay.
They're
.com.
specifically geared up for e-commerce. We had a really good meeting with them last week. I can put you in touch with them.
Okay, great. Yeah, we just get so many people with like ambition, but not the funding, you know.
Clearco is another one. I'm going to be working with Clearco next year, I think, more closely, but they are rolling out a couple of schemes with e-commerce agencies, well-known ones in the US, where they're introducing like a buy now, pay later pricing. Yes, for a bit like the model you have in place, a buy now, pay later funding thing, which is working really, really well. It's added as part of their pricing. Like, this is what the pricing is going to cost you, or you can work with Clearco. And anyway, I'm 5 minutes late.
I've put the link in the chat. Out.fund is the
I'm ready on that. Thanks very much.
I put one as well, trends.co. Check it out. It's a network of entrepreneurs looking to connect with each other to share ideas. And then there's investors in there. There's developers in there. There's this whole mishmash of people. It's pretty good. I just joined.
Wicked. Oh, thanks, guys.
Okay, I will make
Pleasure,
it
everybody.
the next one.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye. See ya. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that roundtable. As promised, I said I would finish up at the end with just a little bit more about how I build technologies into my tech stack with my agencies, and more specifically, how that can work with Gorgeous. So if you don't know a little bit about Gorgeous, overall, they massively streamline the customer journey. The technology automates about 20% of FAQs, which it's there to help reduce support costs. And all of that stuff combined is a fantastic way, a proven way to increase customer loyalty. If you know anything about what's going on in the industry right now, loyalty and retention is one of the top topics in e-commerce. So anything that is built around that topic of retention and retention marketing, which you've probably heard a lot about. In my experience, perfect example, we had a brand that we worked with that were very busy brand. They grew, Instagram brand, grew very, very busy. And we worked directly with the e-com manager. And I could never get stuff through to her. I was constantly chasing her all the time, just constantly chasing her. And I would take her out for lunches and dinners and drinks. And I'm like, what's going on, Zoe? I'm constantly sending these messages and never hear back. And she said, I am balls deep in support, dealing with customer support and dealing with like returns and inquiries and blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, oh, okay, let me figure out a solution that's going to work. So I found out about Gorgeous, and I introduced Gorgeous, the technology, into that brand. And it was a game changer for me, building retainers around the clients. It was a game changer because I was able to push things through with this e-com manager so much easier and quicker. And after that, a bit of a light bulb went off and I was like, okay, this is going to be a key part of my tech stack for the clients that we're working with. And I put that when clients moved from projects into retainers, I recommended that. Very few of them said no, to be honest. It was a really easy sell. It's not really a sell, it's a recommendation. And it was a game changer. So not only that, anybody who knows Gorgeous will tell you that. They're great partners. They're a fantastic team. They're super good fun. In fact, I have one of the team coming over next month to join me at a retreat I'm hosting here in Gran Canaria, so that should be super cute. And additionally, one of my agencies actually uses the technology for their inbound inquiries and uses it pretty effectively. So there's lots of different use cases for this, more than perhaps what people realize. It's more than just help desk or support. If you're working with brands and you're working with them on retention and increasing loyalty and branding, I would say you should give this a crack. So at the end, there'll be slides at the end of this now with some of the partner information. If you want to know any more about them, again, this is not a sales pitch. This is a genuine recommendation because I have worked with them for years, as do a lot of my brands. Give me a shout and I'm happy to make an introduction, or there should be a link here that you can go and just sign up and get on a call with them. See ya.